What's going on, boxing fans? I'm back here with another video here set for you guys. Going to be going in depth, giving a breakdown and my predictions on what is going to happen in the most recent card of boxing between Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn. This card is not, in my opinion, really stacked, but there's some notable names on it. Short and concise. It's not very long, deep type of card that sometimes most of these boxing cards tend to have. But I'm just going to be going over the main card and the fights that they have on there. And first off, as you can see pictured above in the video, we have Vidal Rowley versus Chevion Clark. Chevion Clark has 10 wins and 7 KOs in his resume so far. As of right now, he's just coming off his loss, his only loss on his resume by split decision to another undefeated fighter against himself. And Vidal Riley is an undefeated prospect with tremendous boxing ability. I really do rate his type of boxing acumen that he does have, even at the pedigree that he's as of right now. Still, again, is a prospect. Same that you can say as for Chevion Clark. A bigger step up, in my opinion, for Vidal Riley to really showcase what he's able to do in the ring against a name like a Chevion Clark, who's, again, not somebody that's really known out of there. Cruiserweights are not really known unless you're like a real big name in this division. But Vidal Riley, I think, is going to get the job done in this one. I think he's just a more complete and better boxer. I really do rate his style of boxing and how he goes about it, the way his style and the way that he just goes about business in terms of it being set into the ring. But again, I do think it is a really good step up for him, a necessary step up in his career so far to get somebody in that has good power, that just has one loss on his resume, and wants to be able to vindicate that loss, even though he's not getting a rematch against a guy that he lost to. But vindicate that loss on his record, getting a high step up in terms of a name value. It's like Vidal Rowley. Now, moving on up the card, we stay with the cruiserweight division with Chris Billum-Smith versus Brandon Glanton. Brandon Glanton doesn't have a big name on resumes. But as of right now, he's on a 3 KO win streak. I do believe he has a loss onto his resume. And Chris Billum-Smith is the guy with the name on this fight in terms of this card. He just defeated some actually decent names and has actually decent names on his resume. He's defeated the names of like as Mateus Masternak, Lawrence Okoli, who's a pretty big name coming out of the England-London scene, and Richard Riafakpour, who was an undefeated fighter when he was going against Chris Billum-Smith. But as of right now, he's coming off a loss against Gilberto Ramirez, which I believe there was supposed to be a unification bout against him. And really to go and get undisputed against the real big name and the only big name and everybody that's looking forward to be able to see some type of fights in the cruiserweight division, that being against Jai Opatai. While he did miss out that opportunity, and he did, get that loss on his resume against somebody like Gilberto Ramirez, which I think he's no slouch. He's definitely the second best fighter in the division, that being the cruiserweight division as of right now. Chris Billum-Smith, I think this is going to be a stay busy fight, something to be able to have him busy, to get him back into winning ways, get his confidence and momentum the way he needs to be able to get it, respectfully for him and his career. Give him something to bounce back, get him a little tune-up fight, so that way he can get his name back into the ring in the cruiserweight division. I would not expect him to be able to fight for a title next, because Jai Opatai holds one, and I think Gilberto Ramirez holds the rest of them, so I don't think he's going to get a rematch anytime soon with that. But Chris Billum-Smith is a big name and is really big over on the other side of the Atlantic in London. So he's definitely going to be able to get his way into bigger fights. Moving on up the card, we have Liam Smith versus Aaron McKenna. Pretty much a run-of-the-mill old veteran who still has some gas left in the tank against a young and upcoming prospect that they want to be able to see, is able to show his pedigree and potential in this type of matchup, to be able to push forward this type of veteran to get him into bigger fights later in his career. Liam Smith, we already know who he is and who he's fought. He's fought the who's who already. He's got KO'd by Canelo with the body. He's lost to Jaime Munguia. And then after he had his loss to Jaime Munguia, he put on an impressive 4-fight KO streak 4-fight win streak with 4 KOs, a late career renaissance, as you may say, for Liam Smith. Got the KOs against Liam Williams, Anthony Fowler, Jesse Vargas, even though later at his stage of his age is still a name, and obviously the big KO victory that he had against Chris Eubank Jr. But he hasn't returned since to getting back into the ring since the rematch with Chris Eubank Jr., where he got KO'd in the rematch against him. And Aaron McKenna is an up-and-coming, again, Irish talent. Doesn't have big names on his record, but definitely the prospect and talent and potential is on to be able to show. He's a big 160-pounder. He's pretty big, has quick hands, has some power into his hands, even though he has 18 wins and 9 KOs on his resume. Definitely likes to be able to bring the pressure in. And you could see where he can be able to make a lane for himself in this middleweight division, or potentially even going up to super middleweight, maybe even light heavyweight. He's a pretty big dude, in my opinion, especially for his frame in the middleweight division. Liam Smith is coming off a long layoff, damn near, I want to say 2 years, or at least a year and a half since he's been into the ring. Aaron McKenna, you got to hit while the iron's hot, and I think he is, and I think Aaron McKenna is going to get a nice victory over Liam Smith in this one. Moving on to the co-main event, we have a trilogy fight that I didn't even know that these guys had a trilogy fight set with each other already. I didn't even know that they matched up with each other at all. Anthony Yard versus Lyndon Arthur. We already kind of know who Anthony Yard and Lyndon Arthur is, the Lions in the Den. That's what you're getting with Anthony Yard. Earlier in his career, he had the loss against Kovalev where he looked really, really bad with his gas tank and he got stopped. He had a gutsy performance against Artur Beterbiev, but eventually got stopped in that one. In the first matchup that they had, with that being Anthony Yard with Lyndon Arthur, he lost 5 years ago, split decision, and that one, and as of right now, he's riding a 3-fight win streak against pretty much no names, just staying busy, staying active, staying in the ring, and not creating any type of rust for himself in his career. So he's keeping himself active, which is good. And for Lyndon Arthur, he lost in the rematch against Anthony Yard. He got KO'd bad. And then after that, he went on a 4-fight win streak to get himself back into a groove, and then he lost to Dimitri Bivol in the light heavyweight division. But after that, he got a win against Liam Cameron, the dude who gave a lot of problems to Ben Whitaker. It says a lot about that. In this one, these guys, again, have a lot of history with each other, have shared many rounds with each other so far, has gone through a split decision. Anthony Yard got the KO. Obviously, Lyndon Arthur is going to want to be getting his get back and potentially wanting to KO back Anthony Yard, even though Anthony Yard hasn't been looking pretty impressive in his run as of recently. But he is on a 3-fight win streak, and Lyndon Arthur just came off a win over Liam Cameron in the light heavyweight division. I think he's just coming up to the cruiserweight division as of right now. I'm going to go with Anthony Yard. I like Anthony Yard better than I do Lyndon Arthur. I think he's more talented and more skilled. Even though he does have his chinks into his armor, Anthony Yard, in my opinion, overall, is just a better fighter compared to Lyndon Arthur, even though Lyndon Arthur has his tricks in his sleeve and under his bag, but I don't think it'll be enough in this one. And we move on to the main event, that being the highly anticipated, great build-up matchup so far between Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn. These two guys, the build-up has been absolutely tremendous. These guys were supposed to face off, I believe, in 2022 or maybe a little bit earlier than that, but that's when Conor Benn got popped for steroids. So since he got popped for that, matchup got called off, and his career was kind of derailed. I believe he got suspended for some time, and he came back and he had some decent victories over some whatever names. But yeah, Conor Benn has a lot of talent, has a lot of skill, is very tenacious, but just has this attitude and can be very, very emotional. And I think that could be able to hinder your performance a lot of times when you bring that type of emotion into the boxing ring, unless you're a guy like David Benavidez, who actually thrives off of getting emotional and getting the emotions going and getting hyped up and getting angry into fights. It really fuels him better. But Conor Benn, in my opinion, hasn't been in the ring with anybody of the like of a Chris Eubank Jr. He has wins and is undefeated as of right now. but has wins over Adrian Granados, Chris Algieri, Chris Van Herden, Peter Dobson is his most recent victory that he has, and against Peter Dobson, I believe he was undefeated at the time that he faced Conor Benn. But Conor Benn, in my opinion, hasn't really had any great competition. He has a lot of power. Again, he has some fast hands, but he fights at the 147-pound division. He's a welterweight, right? And he's jumping up to middleweight. And Chris Eubank Jr., who is a super middleweight, is dropping down to middleweight to be able to negate, dropping down so far, them meeting somewhat in the middle, and it obviously between these two guys being very, very heated as we can see through the build-up. These guys really don't like each other, and that sparks from before when their fathers actually fought against each other, that being Chris Eubank and Conor Benn's father. Blanking on his name right now. Nigel Benn. There we go. Nigel Benn. So Chris Eubank and Nigel Benn went at it. I believe Chris Eubank won in that matchup, but Nigel Benn still being a big name over there in London, a big name just in general with his boxing ability. And with Chris Eubank Jr., he had some early career losses, against Billy Joe Saunders in a close split decision. Lost the matchup against George Groves, where George Groves pulled out all the stops in that one to be able to get the victory. But after that, he went on a 6-fight win streak to then get TKO'd, as we aforementioned, talked about earlier, Liam Smith. He then redeemed himself after that in the rematch and got a TKO against Liam Smith. And it is now on a 2-fight KO win streak, and his last win coming out against Kamil Sharameta. I believe that was the Bivol versus Better Biev matchup that they had as of last year. I think he was on that card. I think that's the card that he was on. I remember watching that fight and him looking absolutely zoned in and focused. He looked really, really good in that matchup, even though Zermeta is, a notch below down. These guys, in my honest opinion, are kind of the same, where they're kind of like B-plus level players, where I believe when eventually, as of right now, Conor Benn is stepping up in terms of competition, and when Chris Eubank steps up in terms of competition, you kind of see his level. He can be able to get there. You can see the talent. You can see the potential. You can see him moving forward. You can't really say that as of Chris Eubank Jr. as of right now because he's a veteran in the game as of right now. But beforehand, earlier in his career, you can be able to see that with the speed, the power, and all the things that he's able and the skills that he's able and capable of having. But when he gets up ranked with, and is mentioned with the names of guys like Canelo, who's obviously, if he gets a victory right now against Conor Benn, his name is going to be linked to him in the future. But Conor Benn, to me, in my opinion, has been kind of underwhelming, unimpressive. His burst, really big test against a guy like Chris Eubank Jr., who's been there and done that so far. I'm going to go with Chris Eubank Jr. by KO. I think he's going to be the bigger man. I think he's going to be able to punish Conor Benn. I think Conor Benn will obviously have his moments. I think that we'll get into a lot of heated exchanges between these two guys. But I just think Chris Eubank Jr. is just a level above Conor Benn in pretty much everything. Experience, IQ, speed kind of negates it. Power, even though Conor Benn has it, is coming up like 2 divisions. And yeah, you can say Eubank is going to drop down 1 division, but he's going to rehydrate, I think, at a pretty healthy weight for himself to negate that. I'm going to go with Chris Eubank Jr. I favor him more than Conor Benn, in my honest opinion. Maybe Conor Benn can surprise me in this one, but I really don't see that happening in this matchup. Like this video if you obviously like this video, guys. Comment your opinions on what you think is going to happen on this card. Do you think I got this main event wrong? Are you going to go with Conor Benn getting the KO or getting the victory? And what about the rest of the card in your opinion on what you think is going to go down? And subscribe, boxing fans, because I'm here, you're here, and we're both here for a reason, I assume. So why not stay? Stay a little bit longer. Why not? See what you like. More content coming for you, baby. Thank you guys again for watching again, and peace.